Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on another podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time. And we have, you not believe who we have on our podcast tonight. Oscar Jordan. You might know him. Many Dhar Mann actor, characters, musician, and he joins us today. Now, he's a true Renaissance artist whose creative journey defies boundaries and expectations. And from his formative years on the Chicago stage to commanding roles in iconic films and television series, Jordan has built a career rooted in versatility, depth, and fearless expression. A conservatory trained actor and graduate of DePaul University's Goodman School of Drama, he has shared the screen with legends like Jack Nicholson, this is excellent, Tom Cruise, in productions such as A Few Good Men, Life, and I Love Trouble. His television appearances span beloved series including Seinfeld. I saw that episode with you in it. ER, Melrose Place, and China Beach. And more recently, he's captivated audience in Silent Hill Ascension. We're going to talk about that. And numerous episodes of Dhar Mann Studios. And we love his characters in that one. His portrayals of complex father figures and authoritative roles resonate with emotional authenticity. Jordan's dedication to craft is matched by his physical discipline as a martial artist trained in Jeet Kune. What is it? Jeet Kune Do.
That's correct.
I'm gonna stay away from you, buddy. Cali, Silat, bring a dynamic presence to every character he inhibits. Wow, I don't think I recall any Darman episode where we actually were able to put that in use.
It's much too dangerous.
Do
No,
you
I
know?
haven't.
Do you know Tiger as well?
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah, beyond the screen, Oscar
can't do
Jordan.
everything, right?
Beyond the screen, Oscar Jordan is a seasoned musician, journalist, and author whose creative output continues to inspire and challenge conventions. His critically acclaimed albums, Mr. Bad Luck and Electric Soul, showcase a rich blend of blues, rock, and soul, reflecting his deep roots in American musical traditions. As a professional guitarist and instructor, he's performed across the country and composed original scores for independent films. His contributions to Vintage Guitar magazine reveal scholars' insight and performers' passion as he interviews artists, reviews gear, and explores music history. Wow, you're such a I guess you call yourself an Oscar of all trades. Wow, you, you do everything. It's amazing.
Yeah, Oscar, that's pretty good. Oscar of all trades.
Yeah. So your literary work is equally bold. Your novel Savage Times is a genre-defying Afro-futurist adventure that fuses historical fiction, martial arts. Oh, you got to have martial arts in there, and jazz into a cinematic narrative. And your latest film, Lorenzo Savage is a Dead Man,
Hmm.
continues your exploration of provocative storytelling.
Mm.
Whether through acting, music, writing, or photography, Oscar Jordan remains a fearless and multifaceted artist whose work challenges norms and celebrates the power of creative expression. Your film credits, like Life, you played juke joint guitarist. You were in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Also, we had Keith Coogan on the podcast some months ago, so he was actually
Mm.
in the same movie with you.
Yeah, yeah.
A Few Good
There's,
Men. You
there's,
were in that.
there's a lot of it's weird. There's a lot of people in that movie that are like they how it is. They're everywhere now. We've all moved on to different things, but it's just interesting how at the time that was a long time ago, but it's just it was great.
Yeah, you worked with a lot of wonderful talent there. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, you were in Telephone Critic, Mind Your Business, America's Most Wanted, China
Hmm.
Beach. I saw that one. 30 something. You were in
Hmm.
Seinfeld, Melrose Place, Young and the Restless, Days of Our Lives, ER. It's incredible. So, everyone, today we dive deep into the mind of Oscar Jordan to explore his creative process, inspirations, and the stories behind his art. So, thank you. Is your head getting too big there?
I'm delving into my mind.
Wow, can't believe it. You want to turn this into a Dhar Mann episode then? Um, so thank you for joining us tonight, Oscar. Really appreciate the opportunity to interview you. You're one of my favorite Dhar Mann actors. Let's go back to the beginning. So what was life like for you growing up?
What was life like for me? It was pretty. Well, I grew up in Chicago, and South Side and North Side, and you know, mom and dad, and running the streets of Chicago. It was a different time of Chicago is not what it was. Of course, nothing is what it was. But I was a pretty. I was a very happy. I was one of those kids who I loved watching movies and television, and my imagination and playing kind of theater games before I was in theater, and just and doing a lot of imaginative kid stuff. But I think I took it a little further. I was a big GI Joe guy, so I would direct the GI Joes doing scenes from famous movies. That's one thing I remember. One was Planet of the Apes and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. So I used to have the GI Joes running scenes from those movies. So I was just one of those kids who were just imagining. I used to do impressions and voices. I was that kind of kid. I was shy, but I always had this kind of just love of film and television, and just being funny, and being wacky, more wacky than funny.
So what was it, the defining moment we wanted to, well, first of all, when you started playing an instrument and started playing the guitar and then you got into acting. How did that
Hmm.
happen? You decided like that's strange. First you're a musician, then you get into acting. That sort of how did that mean?
Well, there's separate things that have kind of they ran together, and sometimes against each other, because it's a different mindset being a musician than an actor, and then I've been able to combine them in a few cases. I did a commercial. Yeah, I've done numerous commercials and some on camera film things where I played guitar. And I just, that was just business where I just, well, hey, you're an actor and you can play guitar. They might need an actor who can play guitar. So that was just kind of a little, a brand that I could do as a side hustle, because at some point they're going to need an actor who can play guitar. And I shot in an indie film about 3 or 4 years ago, where I played like an older blues man teaching this young girl how to play guitar, and it was just this heartwarming story of encouragement, and just trying to help young people find themselves, kind of thing. So that it helps that way. But most of the time, it's kind of like, as you probably know, actor's life is very up and down. And so when I'm not acting, when things are really slow, I either just got really deep into jazz and blues and rock and metal, and I'm an eclectic, as you can probably tell. So I would study guitar, and then I would be in bands.
Mm.
And I'm in a couple bands now, and I had my own bands, and I wrote music and recorded albums and things like that. So it's always been a kind of I'm never I oh and I tell this to young actors all the time. I say, if you're an actor, there's the industry, because it's kind of pick me, and it's you have to be vetted, and you go through this whole process of being picked to be in their project. But you must always have a passion project for yourself, and it doesn't have to be music, but it has to be something that fulfills you and makes you feel like you're doing something special, something that's close to your heart. And I've been a musician for many years, so I've done that. but I'm also a screenwriter. So I've done that. So that's what's going on. The musician thing's a constant, but within the last, I've been a screenwriter for over 20 years, but recently I've been really interested in getting things produced and writing my own ideas of what I like. And I love old movies, so I'm a big fan of film noir from the 40s, and it's very stylized. And there's certain types of dramatic tropes that go on in these films, as you know. And I love adding those tropes to a more contemporary stage. And a couple of years ago, I produced and wrote a movie called Sick Money, and that was one of the most fulfilling experiences I've had, is being the star of my own movie, writing my own dialogue, having wonderful people around me to help me, wonderful actors and actresses, and then finally, and I won a bunch of awards at film festivals for that short film, and got to do Q&As at film festivals and all that. So that's one thing that I guess, it's kind of like a, a, a mental health protective measure, because in the acting world it's 99.9% rejection.
Oh,
So you have to have something for yourself. That means and we're all artists, whether it's you're a writer, you're an interviewer, you're a musician, you're an interviewer, a screenwriter, or any kind of artistic endeavor. That's art, and you have to find that and have that for yourself, and not just be waiting by the phone. And that's a terrible feeling. So you have to have something for yourself, and that's kind of what I've done. I've had music filled up my life as well as writing.
yeah. Well, you worked with legends like Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise. What did you learn from those experiences?
I learned that sometimes the camera just loves you. It loves you or it doesn't. There's just some people are photogenic, and I remember, I'll never forget this moment as long as I live. Um, we're on location on this little island off San Diego. We're shooting, and we're walking around. I was there for 3 days, and Rob Reiner, he goes, Oscar, come here, look at this. And I go, what? He goes, look in the camera. So I'm looking in the camera, and I'm looking at Tom Cruise, and he goes, isn't he the most beautiful man you've ever seen? And I went, yes, you're right. It's like he just looks good. He just looks good. I mean, and that's not to take away from his acting or his production work or his producing or his artistry, but he just looks good. And same, and I was in a big table scene, and that big scene in A Few Good Men, and there was a lot of stars there. There was like Nicholson was there, and um, Tom Cruise was there. I think Kevin Bacon was there, I believe, and some other people who I can't remember. What's his name? Sutherland. Not. I can think of Donald Sutherland, but his son, I can't think of his name.
Kiefer.
Kiefer Sutherland was there, so it was a lot of. It was very star studded for that 3 days. But but I mean, for the rest of us, we have to, we have to bring the emotional content, as Bruce Lee used to say.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so we have to be, just invested in our characters and our motivations, and be, um, I like to say, submerged in our situation and the stakes. And that kind of takes care. The looks thing is, that's the camera department, but everything else we can control. You control what you can control, right?
I like that, Oscar. I like that. So, how did you think your time at DePaul University's Goodman School of Drama shape your craft in any way?
Yes, because it was very competitive, and most of the people, when you most of the people are very young, early 20s, late teens, and you know nothing. Or we had people there who had done a lot of high school theater, maybe different kinds of theater, but all very young, including myself. I was actually one of the older students when I went because I spent 3 years in the army, and I toured Europe and the U.S. as a military police. So when I when I got out of the military, I was dying to get out of the military, and I had wanted to be an actor since I was like 9. But I didn't know it. I didn't know that because I come from like the inner city of Chicago. It was a ghetto. It was
Mm.
Cabrini Green, and you just don't. I mean, I'm watching TV, but I'm not thinking I can do that. I'm thinking, oh, that's those people over there on the West Coast in New York. That's not me. I couldn't do that. I'm just enjoying being a kid. But later on, I just, when I was in high school, I think I want to be an actor. And I used to read all these books, and unfortunately, I was just I was way very shy and sensitive, and I didn't have a lot of courage to get in front of people and do that. And I just my stubbornness overcame my shyness, basically. But being at the conservatory, I mean, I learned everything, all kinds of theater, the history of dramatic literature, movement, makeup and hair. I mean, it's a conservatory program, so you learn every single thing that you could think of. Unfortunately, at the time, there was less film training. So I learned how to act, and I learned how to act on stage and everything involved with that. But when I got out, I had to learn how to focus that knowledge to work for the camera, which is a whole different craft than learning how to act on stage. It's a whole different thing, and a lot of actors struggle with that, especially young actors, of translating the theater experience as an actor to the film experience, and then vice versa. I've seen film actors try to do plays and they're awful because they don't know how to use the space. There's a lot of technical elements that go into acting in terms of the different types of environments you're working in. A sitcom is different than a soap, and a soap is different than a low budget feature,
Hmm.
and a big budget feature is different than a commercial. And they would just require you to just switch and work for the medium, and that's all that is. But when I got out of acting, when I got out of Goodman, it gave me a basis to translate all those, not only because I wanted to, but I had a foundation with Stanislavski and all different, acting teachers and things like that.
Was Meisner one of them as well? Because I've
Yes,
spoken to a lot
we
of
learned
actors.
everything. We learned everything, and we just, you just they gave you a tool belt and said, "This is your tool belt. Whatever you need, you have it. Here's my screwdriver. Here's my wrench." And that's how I look at Meisner and Stanislavski and different other systems. Also, we studied voice and different things like that, and then of course when you do Shakespeare, voice is very important, as well as Chekhov and doing the great classics and things like that, as well as the kitchen sink drama and things like that. And so it's we call it your instrument. It's a little pretentious, but this is our instrument, and you basically want to have a good instrument, highly polished and tuned, and be ready at a moment's notice for whatever it's needed.
What do you think is your favorite role you've ever played, Oscar?
My favorite role. Um, let's see. Well, I've never really thought about it, but a lot of the good roles, my favorite role also ties into a positive experience. I've been in some big roles and some lucrative roles that were tied to not so good experiences. But excuse me, Oh well, okay. I'll name two because that's to cut to the chase. Last year, I was in an independent film that's winning all these awards now because it's running the circuit. It's called Nothing Good on 12th Street, and it's a heist film. And these young guys break into a warehouse and steal all this money, and they try to get away with it. And it's my money, and I play a strip club owner
Mm.
who's also a sadist.
Ooh.
And so, so there's like a torture scene, and there's the interrogation scene, and I'm this really really bad guy, and I had to just be someone completely different than I am, and I was given the environment. A lot of the times, it's sometimes actors are asked to do things, but the environment is not supportive. And I have to say that this environment allowed me to just kind of be in my head and and let me be in character, and just kind of be this terrible person. And I just felt like I just let this character envelop me, and do that. And when I saw the results, I went, oh, that's exact. And it's like an artistic thing. Yeah, that's what I wanted. That's how I wanted it to come off. That's what I wanted, and it's very very satisfying. And the other one is I wrote this character called Lorenzo Savage, who's also in the book Savage Times. He's also in the short film that I produced a couple of years ago called Sick Money, and he's and it's part of a screenplay trilogy called the Savage Times trilogy. These are screenplays, but I play this person who's a professional. That means he's a criminal. He's not just a criminal. He is a criminal who respects the craft of criminality and and holds it in high regard, like an expert carpenter or an expert, equestrian, or it's like this is a something to be a great honor to be this professional elite criminal. And I play this guy who's trying to bring his daughter in to help him accomplish this heist, uh, and I'm doing it under the auspices of I'm dying of cancer, and I need her to help me with this one last heist, and she hates me. So this movie becomes a buddy movie between me and my daughter, and she hates me, and I'm trying to love her again, and it's that's the friction, that's the conflict, and then the mission is to go cross country and make this exchange in Barstow. So but I mean, I wrote the character, so of course I'm going to love it. But that one, Lorenzo Savage, is the one I think of the most, that I'm most happy with. And then last year doing this, his name is Charles. The film is called Nothing Good on 12th Street.
Yeah. So you're talking about Lorenzo Savage as a dead man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what about Savage Times? What inspired the concept behind that?
Uh, I I have always been obsessed with time travel,
Me too.
and there was
Love it.
a bad television series that came out in the '60s that lasted basically, I believe, one season called
Time
Time.
Tunnel.
And they started off really well.
Yeah.
They lost the script, and it just got worse and worse and worse, and then they got canceled.
Yeah.
But that the pilot and those first few episodes just stayed in my brain, and it was the whole idea of every episode. It's like, what year is this? And you have to deal with all the issues of being not, you're not even in a different country, you're in a different time period. So I remember I've always been obsessed, didn't know how to put it together, and then I remember hearing this Louis C.K. joke, and I don't remember the punchline, but the setup of the joke was black people shouldn't time travel. I went, that's it. That's it. And it's all there. It's black people shouldn't time travel. So, I've taken this professional, Lorenzo Savage, and I put him with someone who's an opposite. It's like an odd couple being going back in time and having to solve some major issue to the where they can put their skill sets together and save people essentially. That's it. And so I've taken my obsession with time tunnel and coupled it with the Louis C.K. joke, and then the rest is all my brain working like crazy. And I've got the first. I'm working on the second novel to Savage Times. Savage Times 1 takes place in 1942 in Paris.
Hmm.
Uh, They try to help. They're going to help jazz musicians escape Paris from Hitler. And they use the FBI agent is um, she's a deadly FBI agent, and then of course Lorenzo Savage is the criminal, but they have complementary skill sets that help them get these people out of Paris. And then the second novel takes place in 1872 in Oklahoma. So they keep bouncing. So it's an ongoing series of basically these two people fighting injustice from
Yeah.
different time periods.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I wrote a series actually on different parallel universes with a
Mm-hmm.
main evil character, a German guy who was like very evil, and I revealed at the very end that that was Hitler's son from a
Mm,
different Earth because
right.
they had won World War II, so obviously Hitler would have a son with Eva Braun, so I made it like that. But I stopped it because I thought, it was the age of Hogan's Heroes, and nobody wanted to hear anything about that, and so I just shelved it.
Yeah.
But your story here, it's an interesting blend of sci-fi, historical fiction, and Afrofuturism so seamlessly. Um,
Well,
but
not so much Afrofuturism, but it's if I can pull back from it and try to I can't. It's impossible to be objective, but it really is pretty much a graphic novel made into a movie. That
mm,
that's what I because I just finished a script. I adapted Savage Times the novel into a screenplay. So, but and it's it's larger than life. Time travel is impossible. I mean, there's plenty of suspension of disbelief. But if no one had that, we wouldn't watch anything.
hmm
But it's like I always thought of it like if Spike Lee directed Indiana Jones. So there's an element of culture, black culture, and inhumanity and things like that. It's also got hair raising adventure stuff a la Indiana Jones and things like that. But it's grounded. It's realistic as possible. There's some fun in it too because they're both wise asses. The two characters, but they bounce off of each other, but they know in a crunch they save each other's lives and they help to right wrongs.
how much research went into depicting Nazi occupied Paris and the jazz era? How did that work for you?
5 years.
5 years.
Took me
Wow.
5 years to write that novel. I studied. I had to. Okay, so that's just scraping the surface. That's easier because you could research Paris. You can research like communities within Paris that had black African American jazz expatriates because they lived there. There's a big gypsy jazz scene in Paris during the early, it takes place in 1942. Paris has just been overtaken by the Nazis. So they've taken over Paris. They're getting ready to erase swing music because um, Hitler's not a big jazz fan. He's a big Wagner guy, and our jazz heroes in the book don't play much Wagner or any classical music. They're jazz swing guys. So I had to. It was a labor of love, but it was a lot of work. I had to learn what was going on in 1942 in Paris, the invasion of the German armies, what happened, who ran what daily life was like, how they just kind of how the Germans ran over the French people, and then that's a whole thing in itself. I had to research regional vernacular from the late 30s, early 40s of black people, which changes regionally. So these people, the expatriates are from different places, but they've come together and they speak. And I wanted everyone to speak with a particular vernacular. They use late 30s, early 40s slang, vernacular, jokes. Um, there's just common phrases the way we do now. We use memes and common phrases. They had their own thing that they used, which we don't remember anymore now. But I had to put all that into the dialogue, and I wanted everyone to, it had to be all there. And I love that stuff. I love old slang and vernacular, and that's I'm a big film noir fan, so of course I hear all that anyway when you watch old movies. But I had to investigate what people talked like in Harlem in 1938. What kind of slang did they use? What kind of how did they refer to these people? How did they refer to that person? And I actually have this doc file of all the slang words that I could find from that era, and I would just put them in the dialogue and pepper it. I didn't want to overdo it because it could get really cartoonish. You could sound like a Three Stooges thing or something. But that was really important. And research is really tough, but it's really important. And even if it's a little, it's the devil's in the details, and it's the details that matter when someone says the right piece of slang, at the right moment.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we're in the war era. We're in the it's 1942, and there's a zeitgeist, there's a popular culture, and they were all a part of that, and it was a unifying thing. For example, Mickey Rooney was a big star then, and everybody, oh, I'd love to meet Mickey Rooney. You know what I mean? It was just like, it's just stuff like that. It just kind of it just lays over the culture of what was going on back then.
yeah. Were there any real life jazz musicians inspired characters in the book?
Yeah, there's a character in the book named Buster Pete, and he's kind of an amalgamation of like Louis Armstrong and a few other characters. He wears a bowler hat, and so he's an amalgamation. But I'm drawing from, I love that jazz era, particularly that era of jazz. So there's all these characters that pop up in that era, and I kind of feel there's one character who's she's Buster Pete's canary, which if you don't know what that term means, she's the girl singer for the
Oh,
swing band. Yeah,
mm.
and they say, "Oh, I'm Buster's canary," and I don't try to explain anything in the book. It's like if you have to like, oh, she's the singer. Oh, okay, that's what that meant. So there's all these terms that they just common parlance back then, but we don't use anymore. But anyway, so she's the chanteuse, beautiful. She's kind of like a Dorothy Dandridge kind of character.
Yeah, Dorothy
Um,
Dandridge.
so, so I'm really doing an amalgamation of different people of all the characters, and I think that helps to make them relatable for people who are history buffs. She's oh yeah, that's you think she's getting ready to sing Stormy Weather or something. You know what I mean? You get that feeling from watching old movies and things like that.
Yeah,
But what I try to do is I try to run this through line of race and colorism that existed back then, and how not only did black people struggle against uh, oppression, they struggled against each other because that still exists, and how a unifying threat brings everyone together, and so that's what happens too.
how do you approach writing action scenes versus emotional ones?
Well, I had to um, did a lot of research in narrative storytelling because I realize I'm not the average reader. I was hearing stories of people hate action scenes because they're boring, and I don't get it, but I still wanted to kind of circumvent that. But there's just a technique of just making everything super simple and very direct, and not getting too flamboyant and not being long-winded, and that really helps, just being very concise, uh, um, active sentences. um, he was about to walk to the stove. Nope, he walked to the stove. I mean, there's just writing. It's just writing techniques of how to write active sentences, uh, and being very clear, very concise. Don't use 25 words when four will do. Just and breaking them up in paragraphs so they're very neat and orderly. That helped me emotionally. I'm still learning that, but it's mostly some things are you don't have to write everything the character is thinking. You can the character can not say anything, and it's hard to put that on the page, but you want to give something for the actor to say, oh, I see what he's doing.
Mm.
So my first drafts are always overwritten because it has everything. It's like blah. So then when I start polishing and fine tuning, then it's about, does he have to say that? No, he doesn't have to say that. You can get it, and you can get it through a look, or you can get it through intention or tone, and that's really helped me when I was finishing up the adaptation of Savage Times into a screenplay. I mean, I'm taking like a 485-page book and literally boiling it down to 120 pages,
Oh,
screenplay format.
wow.
And the first draft of that screenplay was 195 pages, and I had cut a lot out anyway. And I was and that's you basically, if in most when you're in the industry, if you're sending scripts out to people, if anything is over 120 pages, it's a red flag, pretty
Mm.
much. I mean, there's exceptions if you're an auteur making your own movies or whatever, but for the most part, if you have a screenplay that's over 120 pages, they're going to go, you don't know what you're doing, and that's
Mm.
not true, of course, but it's a red flag. But I didn't want any. I wanted to at least get someone to get to page 15 with mine. So it was all, I had to boil all the fat off and chop scenes and and it's really helped me with my editing. And that you don't have to say everything you think. A look is strong. It's show don't tell, which is one of the cliches that they tell you. But yeah, it just, and then trial and error.
Yeah. Um, for Lorenzo Savage's Dead Man, does that how does that film relate to the novel Savage Times, or does it?
It relates, and they have the same name. I just decided I love that name, and I'm going to have these three screenplays that all have the same character name, but they're all different. There's something similar about them, but they're different characters in kind of a noirish uh, screenplay. I have another screenplay I wrote about 3 months ago called The Goodman, which is about Lorenzo Savage is sent out to find his missing brother, who's a twin, and they have a very contentious. They've had a contentious relationship
Mm.
because Lorenzo Savage was the good brother, and the other brother, Eric, is the bad brother. They're identical twins, and somehow going through life, they were the bestest of friends and buddies and brothers, had the same interests, and somewhere in their early teens veered off, and one became an academic scholar, a military veteran, a war hero. He's the good one supposedly, and the bad one went off into a life of crime and jail, and then he turns up missing. And what we find out is at the end of this journey, the good one was maybe not so good, and the bad one was maybe not so bad. And it
Mm.
has a big climax and good, And this is like a personal story because this comes from my own family. I have a brother that we're not identical twins, but we're like that. So
Oh,
for years and years, I wanted to write a story about my brother and I, but heavily disguised so that no one would get angry with me. um, I did one. I was in a TV show years ago, um, and we were on set, and I play a German actor who is being blackmailed by his wife or something like that.
mm.
And there's a film within a film sequence where I get into a fight in an elevator, and then the director goes, "So, what do we do for this?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" "Well, there's no fight choreographer. How should we do this?" And I go, "I'm here."
Awesome.
So I choreographed a elevator fight scene, and it's another proud moment because I like, oh, I never get to do this. And I have the clip. It's on YouTube somewhere. You could probably pull it up, and it's me in an elevator doing martial arts in tight quarters, you know. And at the end of it, I break his neck.
Oh.
It's
Why fight him?
either
Why not just grab him in the beginning and do it?
well,
Just
it's
fight him.
well, drama.
I know. You want to show off.
But I mean, it's either a chiropractic movement or it's a broken neck. You decide. You know.
How did you get involved in the Dhar Mann series? Like, you're pretty good, and I want to ask you about some of these episodes. How did you get involved?
um, I auditioned. That's it. I auditioned and I got in. And it's a funny story. The first time they said I had sent in some stuff in, they go, "Oh, we want to know if you want to play this character," and it was like a really small role. And I think I was playing a janitor or something. And I was like, "I don't want to play a janitor." And then they called me back again, like later, and they go, "Oh, do you want to play a dad who adopts a twin?" No,
Mm.
I gave it away. I gave it away. Do you want to
Girl
play a
finds out
dad?
she's adopted and has a twin. Yeah, you played the dad.
Yeah, and what happens is the twin shows up like 10 years later, and we're like, "Oh
Yeah.
my god, who are you? You look exactly like my daughter." It's one of those. And I thought I'll do that, and then I was on every time they called me. I just was aboard. whenever I was available, and if I wasn't doing something else, I would always do the Dhar Mann stuff. And then
Yeah, you're
so,
actually really good, and you did one
oh,
with
thank you.
Monica as well about
Yeah,
the
we
barista,
we,
getting your
we did
daughter
one last
barista fired,
month. Pardon?
getting the barista, your daughter fired
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
with
right. Yeah,
Monica.
yeah. That was fun. And we did some other stuff together. Me, Monica as well. We had a good time. She's a
Yeah,
great actress.
she is. I want to ask you. There's an episode called "Family Finds Out Poor Dad is a Secret Millionaire." You played Hayes. Now, in real life, would you ever do that? Where you don't tell your family that you're a multimillionaire until you're dead? Like that's ridiculous.
Yes, it is.
No complaints from
Well,
you.
I understand his motivation. I don't. Of course, I wouldn't have done that, but um, a lot of the scripts are far fetched, but there's a reason behind it. Because people go crazy when they get money,
Hmm.
and they lose their minds, and they forget what's important in life. They forget about their families, and they forget about what really matters in the world, about love and family and connection, and they start buying stuff, and the money drives them crazy. So I think the character just was trying to protect, his family, to give them some moral and ethical stability, and how to deal with the future. Now, it is far fetched, but you get what he was trying to do. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
his heart was in the right place.
When you mentioned that you had no kind of like relationship with your brother, brought to mind this episode, "Rich Businessman Humiliates a Paralyzed Pilot," where he ends up being your brother, and
Yeah,
it was it was Trace Bronson who played the well, he was putting him down, and you find out, oh, it's your brother, right?
yeah.
Did that ever bring up in your mind about your own brother?
Well, I just to be clear, um, my my brother, we have a relationship. We're not split
Okay.
off. I was exaggerating for the story,
Hmm.
but me and my brother are tight. We're different, and we have completely different lives, but we're still a family. But in that story, um, that had more to do with me protecting my brother because he had a disability. Because the
Hmm.
whole thing was people who you know there's a one of the things I really appreciate what Dhar Mann does is they're trying to bring back empathy and compassion, and so I'm of course empathetic and compassionate about my brother, and Trace wasn't so much. So the idea was to, like, think about people and their challenges, and so that's really, I think that was the crux of that, was like, don't put people down, because you never know what they're enduring their life is, or what they're struggling against, and it's good to
Yeah.
be it's good to be thoughtful and compassionate.
I've learned a lot from the Darman episode. I learned not to treat people with disrespect because you never know who they might be. Like the story about this homeless man that was outside the church, somewhere in the States, and people, the way people were treating him as they walked into the church and everything. And then the pastor says, "I'm retiring, but I want to introduce you to the new pastor." And the homeless guy comes out. He takes everything off, said, "I'm the new pastor." And everyone who rejected him and called him names, they went hung their head. Oh, it happens, it happens. And the one I really like is where racist Karen tries getting barista fired. That's with Monica, who plays a really good Karen. And
Right.
that must have been a fun one for you to do.
That was fun. That was fun. We had a good time, because it's just fun, seeing people get their comeuppance,
Yeah.
and then seeing Laura's face, Monica's face, oh, she's like, she gets busted,
Yeah.
um, and then of course, it's like, a lot of the Darman episodes, once the bad guy gets caught, he's usually cast out.
Hmm.
And I was in one episode where It was I play a CEO of a hotel,
Oh yeah.
and it's raining, and I look terrible, and I'm soaked, and I try to get a room at my own hotel, and they kick me out into the rain.
Yeah,
And then the
Tatiana
next
played the
day,
one that kicked you out.
pardon?
Tatiana was the one that kicked you out.
That's right.
Her
And then like
character.
I come back later, and she goes, "Oh no." And he's the CEO, and then I fire her, or Trace fires her on the spot.
Hmm.
But in the one with Monica, her company is failing, and all these people are going to be unemployed. Instead of just saying no because you are a bad person, I say I want to save your company, but not with you as the CEO. You know what I'm saying? So I get rid of her and keep the company, which does more good than bad, instead of just dropping the whole thing. You know what I mean? That's compassion, knowing the big picture, and just she gets demoted, but the company gets saved, which was good.
Is there a character on Dhar Mann you really want to play but haven't played yet?
Uh,
You played a janitor, a CEO. You played one in Rich Jerk Things Date as Gold Digger. You played a boss. And this one here, billionaire gives up everything to be homeless. You played Owen.
uh, you know what? A lot of actors who don't understand the business of acting, what they don't know. So this is going back to going to Goodman School of Drama. See, when you're in a conservatory and you're learning to be an actor, we're studying all these styles of acting, Shakespeare, Chekhov, whatever. And what you're taught as a young actor is that you can do anything. You can be a tree, you can be Abraham Lincoln. You're an actor. This is your instrument. You can do it all. But in the real world of acting, it's business. And the worst thing that you can have as an actor is for someone to look at you and don't know who you are.
Mm.
You want to have a brand. You want to have, some people might say, well, I'm typecast. Well, it's not that narrow, but it's better to have someone say, oh, you're a biker. Oh, you're a dentist. You're a CEO, rather than, I don't know who you are. I once had an acting teacher, but it's different because actors, if you stay in long enough, your brand changes. I used to play a lot of thugs when I got out of school, and like America's Most Wanted, and in
Mm.
fact I played a thug in a movie with Malcolm Jamal Warner and
Oh
Louis
yeah.
Gossett Jr.
Uh,
I was in this movie called The Father Clemens Story. Back in Chicago, we shot it, and it was. I had two scenes with Louis Gossett Jr. and I had
wow.
another. I didn't. I don't think I had a scene with Malcolm Jamal Warner, but we met, and he was a really nice guy. And I'm so sad he passed away.
I know.
Um, but I played a lot of thugs, and so after a while, I can't be a thug anymore because thugs are younger and I'm getting older, and my idea of a thug is different than what is a contemporary. You know what I mean? And then you're the young dad, and then you know what I mean, and then you're the older dad, and then you're the young CEO, and then you're the older
Mhm.
CEO, or you're the young detective, or the older. So that changes, but you want to be identifiable. You want to have a brand. My brand is um, dads and authority figures. No, dads and compassionate authority figures. Now, I played a couple of years ago. I played a cowboy. I was Bass Reeves in a movie couple of years ago. I
Mm.
played sadistic, night strip club owners. I played twisted cops. I played all kinds of weird characters. I was the boyfriend on my episode of Mind Your Business, just aired this week, where I played the corporate boyfriend. So you have this brand, and then all these other things happened around it that aren't
Mhm.
quite it. But you need something. You need a bread and butter,
Mhm.
And then that doesn't mean you're only going to be doing that if you're lucky, but you need to have a brand, and other things happen. I've played other types of characters beyond that.
If you woke up in the morning and you were one of your Dhar Mann characters forever, who would that be?
Where do you get these questions from?
I like the deep dive.
Yeah, you do. Excuse me. Let's see. That I would like to play forever.
Like that's who you are. You're that character. Like you wake up and you're um,
Well, you know what? I just the top of my brain. I'll be honest. I've done so many. I've done like 3 years worth of characters so far. I don't remember all of them, but the one that comes to mind because you mentioned that is the CEO who got kicked out of the hotel because he's a nice guy and he's compassionate, and he, there was a moral at the end of the story, and I'm the one who gives the moral. Do not judge a book by its cover. Just because someone looks a certain way doesn't mean they are. You have to like give them a chance. And I just always like to think of myself as that person who doesn't jump to conclusions and gives people a chance.
I know a lot of CEOs, vice presidents, presidents, and big top people who don't even dress it.
Right.
And basically, sometimes you see someone in a suit wearing gold, and they're driving this big car, and they're just regular people who work at a restaurant. So I don't think looks mean anything. Like your CEO doesn't mean you look like a CEO, you know. So that's I think Dhar Mann gets a lot of his experience and ideas from literal real world examples. I think.
Yeah. Well, a lot of those stories are ripped from the headlines. I
Hmm.
mean, they got plenty of Karen stories to go around.
I know.
And I like, I really, especially in the political, social climate that's going on now. I
Hmm.
mean, I mentioned it earlier. I mean, we really need people to be more compassionate and empathetic, and not judge a book by its cover, and not be racist, to be blunt. And I think a lot of the Dhar Mann episodes, they shine a light on that. And I when I get recognized on the street, um, you know, I'm really touched by what people get out of it. Because okay, going back to the film noir thing, in a lot of, like, say, especially like 50s television, they had a writing style where there was always a moral. There was at the end of there was what did we learn here? What is the moral of the story? And that's gone now. But Dhar Mann is doing that. What is the moral of the story? What have we learned? And that's kind of what I did. That's almost like a throwback, writing wise, to um, having everyone learning a valuable lesson.
Yeah, you got like quite a lot of accolades, not just in acting, but in music and everything. I want to ask you about your album, Mr. Bad Luck and Electric Soul. What stories do they tell?
Uh, they Mr. Bad Luck was. I'm from Chicago, and I was just surrounded by blues music because that's the home of the blues. And at the time, I just really wanted to share the music I grew up with, and the diversity of the styles of blues. Like, if you listen to the record, there's kind of a lot of styles represented within the umbrella of blues. And so I wrote all these songs that reflected that. Um, it was, a lot, and it was also a reaction to, I would I would listen to blues albums, some blues albums, not all of them, but there was a few blues albums I heard where they kind of just they did the same tempos, or they did the same style of blues, and they would just change the key, or I mean, it was kind of the same. It's like you have 10 songs that are three, two versions of the same song within a 10 song track list. They were just kind of, redundant, style wise. So like on a Bad Luck, there's like a New Orleans funky, New Orleans groove, bluesy groove. There's like slow minor blues. There's Western swing shuffles and swing music. I just kind of went across the board from swing to funk to tear jerking, crying in your beer, blues, slow blues, um, jump blues, which is comes out of the 40s. So it was just kind of like a nice buffet of original blues with different feels, all blues, all different. Oh, and
Well, it's
eclectic
yeah.
soul was
Mhm.
basically me showing off my eclecticism based on like the funk music I was listening to at the time, funk rock, blues, um, and some of it has Latin feels. There's one song on there called "You and I," which used to get a lot of airplay. That's basically an homage to Carlos Santana. So
Yeah.
so that's more, it's more in the rock funk, but there's blues and everything, and that's my favorite record. But funny, while Eclectic Soul is my favorite album, everyone loves Mr. Bad much better. It just hits them where they live.
Yeah, watch all your content on your YouTube channel. You playing the guitar. Um, so, what musicians have had the biggest impact on your life?
It's all over the place, and it changes week to week. When I was growing up, I loved, you know sensitive singer songwriters, like the James Taylors and the Paul Simons and the Crosby, Stills and Nash, and then like I love pop music. I love
Good choice. Yeah.
dance music. In high school, I used to love REO Speedwagon, like stuff
Me
like.
too. I
And
love
then
Eat. It's
I
great.
mean, I just like, and then when I became obsessed with guitar, I became very guitar centric.
Hmm.
So moving ahead, I was when I was in I was a metalhead in the '80s,
Hmm.
but I also loved you know pop music in the '80s. I loved dance music. I love Elvis Costello.
Oh yeah, me too.
What I mean. I love great songwriting, and then but I
Hmm.
mean I was very guitar centric, and then that kind of went out to jazz and fusion. Uh, Alan Holdsworth, and then metal shredders, from Ingve to um, Jason Becker to Randy Rhoads and Ozzy. I was a
Randy
huge
Rhoads.
Van Halen fan.
Hmm.
I'm an eclectic, and so I love mastery of an instrument, guitar playing, and in the '80s and '90s, it was like wall to wall shredders and guys showing off all the time. But I always loved great songwriting. I love the the jazz book standards, things like that as well. I love gypsy jazz. I'm a big Django Reinhardt fan,
Mm.
and he was a great virtuoso gypsy jazz player in the '30s. And his name gets mentioned in Savage Times because that's the era, um, and that kind of has a piece in there. And I love bop, and I love post bop, and I love Grant Green, and I love Wes Montgomery, and I just love all the great jazz players. Miles Davis, I'm a big fan of
Oh yeah.
Coltrane, Charlie Parker.
Yeah.
Moving forward, yeah. So I'm an eclectic. I love all that stuff. Um, I'm not a big fan of mariachi music, though.
Do you see parallels between music and screenwriting?
Um, yeah, in that there's a focus necessary there's a discipline that goes into things like that. It's a deep discipline of learning to write within the genre or platform. I also write for a music magazine. I write for a bunch of music magazines, but the one I write for right now the most is Vintage Guitar Magazine. And my editor is he rules with an iron fist. And we've butted heads, but it's really taught me how to be a better writer. When I see his editing, being concise and being and finding the right word. Like remember I said it's better to write 4 words than 25 words. You know what I mean? Just it should be full. It should be potent. Your dialogue should be potent. And that's a discipline because it's easy to go, blah, I'm just going to write. I'm free. I'm an artist. But you have to write, it's, I mean, you can have a day where you can be artsy fartsy and say, I'm going to do whatever I want. But in the end of the day, there's a word count or there's a stylistic requirement in music. If I'm playing a jazz song, I'm not going to play heavy metal licks during a jazz song. You know what I mean? There's just a stylistic requirement. There's technical knowledge that has to go in that you have to learn. And you take your licks through the process and you just learn what the rules are. And then you break the rules sometimes because, it's always a push-pull between established norms and wanting to not be a clone and be an artist. So I'm always doing that. I always break a little rules, just a couple of little ones, just because I need to, there's just things I like that's a no-no, but I put it in anyway because that's just, I always want my personality to come through, whether it's in music and or my writing for a magazine or a novel or a screenplay. And I think that's something that you should lean into is to be unique and bring yourself to the platform within reason. You have to paint. That's the challenge. You're an artist painting within the lines, but you're expressing yourself. And if you paint outside the lines, then you fail. The challenge is to paint within the lines and express yourself as an artist, whether it's screenwriting, actor. Actor shouldn't do this. Well, I'm going to do this and it's going to work. And then you find a way to make it work. You're still painting within the lines, but you're expressing yourself. And that's the challenge because I think young actors or young artists I want to be me and I'm going to do whatever I want, but they'll learn that, for example, in every platform, there are rules. For example, let's say if you wrote a fantasy novel, well, nobody's buying 35-page fantasy novels, believe it or not. If you meet a publisher, they say, oh yeah, well, you're writing a fantasy novel, that's minimum 500 pages.
Oh, wow.
That's an expectation of that genre. There's an expectation of certain works, platform works, whatever you want to call it. There's an expectation of the market. There's no teeny weeny fantasy novels. They're all like this when you go to a bookstore. So, and I learned that because when I wrote Savage Times, my first draft was like, well, not my first draft, but the draft I sent into the publisher was like 300 words. And he goes, well, where's the rest of it? Not 300 words, 300 pages. 300 pages. He said, well, where's the rest of it? I'm like, what do you mean? That's the story. No. In this genre, there's an expectation, and this is the expectation. So you have to, if you want to sell books, or you want to be accepted, or you want to be competitive in this world that you've chosen to be in, then you have to find your voice and your art and your expression within the confines of the expectation. And that's
Yeah.
how it is. And it took me a long time to learn that, but that's the way it is.
Anyway, but thank you so much, Oscar, for being on the program. We're really, really excited, and I was really happy to talk with you. And I really appreciate your acting. I appreciate everything about you. It's awesome, and yeah, it's great. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and I'm honored to be asked, and I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Okay, wait right there, everyone. About Oscar will be linked down below in the description. Um, Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Just hold on right there. We're going to end the stream, everyone.